Trump's play for peace in the Middle East could be in jeopardy. Ukraine hammers Russia as Putin turns to a new air offensive. And is Israel losing ground in the international community? A lot to discuss with former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor and the author of Revolution, KT McFarland. KT, great to see you as always. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you.
President Trump says that he will not resume an all-out war or all-out military action with Iran so long as no U.S. soldiers are killed. The president's still pushing for a deal. KT, very frankly with you, we have, it seems, our foot on the throat of one of the most brutal regimes in the world, and it seems like we're now begging them to make a deal with us. It's usually the other way around. What are we doing here?
Just have some patience. I mean, we're in a situation now where the regime, and that's really the military guy, the IRGC, those are the guys with the guns. They think they can wait out President Trump because of the midterms. They think he'll blink. This is like a staring contest. They think he'll blink first because he's so worried about the midterm results. He looks at Iran and the regime and says, look, they're going to blink first because they're in absolutely dire economic straits. So they have their currencies collapsing. Their inflation rate is over 100%. For basic foodstuffs. They have no income coming into the government. They have all their oil sales have been stopped and halted. All their foreign assets have been seized, their foreign bank accounts. The cryptocurrencies, which is how they've been moving money, that dried up about a week ago. We froze all of that. So they're not paying their people. They have millions unemployed. They're not paying their military. So it's going to crack. Now, how is it going to crack? We're not quite sure. Maybe it cracks because the guys with the guns decide, okay, we'll make some kind of a deal. Maybe what happens is that the so-called moderates, and there are no moderates in Iran, they're nuts and nuttier, and the moderates in Iran could make common cause with the Iranian army, which President Trump has left untouched. He's killed the IRGC military, but it's the army that predates the revolution. They're still intact. So maybe they make some kind of common cause. But Trump's got some time, not much time, but he's got time, and he probably has a lot more time than they do. They're not going to, they can't survive for much longer.
So patience is what you're counseling the American people. Let it play out. Let's let it play out a little bit longer, and I think that's good advice. KT, the president was it appeared a bit perturbed at Prime Minister Netanyahu over his attacks against Hezbollah. Hezbollah has now rejected this whole ceasefire deal between Israel and Lebanon. So we're not really in a situation that's sort of a bilateral deal anymore, but involving actually 4 different countries and a terror group. How do you think this plays out? Because this seems to be getting a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, and it's not just the 4 that you're mentioning. It really includes all of the Gulf Arab countries. I think President Trump's trying to do not just solve the Iran war, but I think he's trying to re-architect the Middle East so that there are different shifting alliances. You know, they've been shifting alliances for 100 years. Now what he's trying to do is lock them in. And so what's happening behind the scenes is that the Gulf Arab countries, the Saudis, Kuwait, others are saying, look, if you, quote, finish the job, or if Israel finishes the job with Hezbollah, or if the United States comes in with another massive military attack, we're worried that it then spreads to us. And so I think what President Trump is trying to do is reassure them. At the same time, he's trying to make sure that Israel gets what it needs, but doesn't destroy our opportunity for a bigger peace. You know, the United States and Israel have a lot of the same priorities, but not all of the same priorities. They don't all line up, and they don't all line up in the same order. Iran wants no nuclear weapons. We want no nuclear weapons. Iran wants all the proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, gone. We want the Strait open. And so I think that President Trump's priorities are going to be the ones that matter at the end of the day. But we're not done with this. It's so hard to be patient in foreign policy, especially as Americans. We want it over like that with a solution. But
it hasn't been. It's only been a few months, actually. So, according to a Pew Research Center survey, a median of about 67% of adults from 36 different countries have an unfavorable view of Israel and little to no confidence in Prime Minister Netanyahu. I happen to think these numbers are cooked for a whole range of reasons, especially when you look at the Muslim populations in some of these countries. But are we starting to see this pushback? Because it's actually the opposite, that Israel is increasing its impact and its influence on the greater Middle East as the president tries to sort of realign the politics there.
You know, I think what President Trump wants is everybody to be part of the Abraham Accords. And that solves a lot of problems. Well, the Abraham Accords started at the end of President Trump's first term, and it was an economic relationship between the United States, Israel, and a couple of the Gulf Arab countries, especially the UAE. Now, that then became a military relationship after Iran attacked, because you now have Israeli soldiers in the Emirates using Iron Dome to protect the Emiratis. Who would have thought that you would have
Right.
Israel fighting on behalf of the Arab Gulf Arabs? So I think President Trump wants to expand that Abraham Accords, have the Saudis join, have other countries join, at which point everybody's at peace with Israel.
Yeah.
So where does this go? Again, I think President Trump has a goal, which is to realign the Middle East. I think he has a goal, no nuclear weapons for Iran. But how that all, and another goal, definitely a goal of opening the Strait of Hormuz. But the specifics of how that plays out, I don't think he even knows at this point.
Yeah.
It's just that we hold all the cards. So it's hard to be patient, but be patient.
I want to pivot to Russia now. Russia stepping up its attacks on Ukraine, firing missiles and drones at the capital of Kyiv, killing more than 20 people this week. But analysts are saying that Russia could be very much in trouble here, and its spring offensive has failed to advance. Ukrainian President Zelensky even writing an open letter to Putin saying it's time to have an in-person meeting. Let's bring this war to an end. How do you see the state of the conflict right now, Katie?
Well, what's happened now is that, which I think nobody could have anticipated or nobody expected, is that Ukraine got really good at one aspect of war, and that's drones. And that is the warfare of the future. They're pilotless, they're cheap, they're easy to use, they're easily to rebuild, and they're quite replenishable. And so Ukraine, just out of necessity, because it didn't have all the other things it needed, it had technology that it was, I mean, Ukrainians are making, drones in the basement of their buildings.
Yeah.
And so they have now become the world's drone expert, and the country that everyone is going to want to buy drones from. Well, what does that mean for Russia? Russia's pretty good at drones too, but not like Ukraine. And so the fact that Russia is now, what are we now, in the fourth year of that war? Russia is increasingly having to turn to China to bail it out financially in other ways. But the reason that the Ukraine war, again, this patience is so hard, but what will happen is that once the Iran war is finished, the Gulf will be open, the Straits will be open, there'll be a massive amount of oil and natural gas in the world. Prices will come plummeting down. That's terrific for our economy.
And
it's
bad
great
for
for
Russia.
the world economy. And really bad for Russia.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's how they've been paying for Ukraine. And if those oil prices are low, the Russians can't even afford to keep fighting.
Yeah. All right. I want to just real quickly for me, Ambassador John Bolton is going to plead guilty to one count of classified documents retention next month. That's a far cry from the 18 counts that the government had presented. Just want to get your quick reaction, Katie.
People leave government, and they leave government knowing that all of their most important ideas and thoughts were in classified documents. So they have a real, temptation to take them home. I walked away with nothing. I didn't even walk away with my date, my calendar. But some people, they have an option. They could have gone to the libraries, the classified libraries where all those documents are kept. But John Bolton appears to have kept a lot of stuff at home and in his own garage or wherever, the basement, wherever he was keeping those documents, and they were not in a secure facility. And I think he's pleading guilty to a lesser crime and lesser charge to avoid a much bigger charge.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe he has a green Corvette as well. Who knows?
Oh, gosh. Maybe.
Former Deputy National Security Advisor Katie McFarland. Katie, always great to have you. Thank you so much.